Hey, is your mouth watering? Mine is. Except they're not donuts at all. They're bath bombs, for goodness sake. Imagine one of those floating in your bath. Mind you, that said, you wouldn't want to mix them up with real donuts, would you? A waterlogged donut. Yeah. Welcome to Ralph's house. Good morning and welcome back to Ralph's house. We won't be doing much on the house because it is winter, and I did say in my last few videos that I wouldn't be doing much on the house because it's cold. If I was a younger man it would be somewhat different, but I'm in my 60s, approaching my mid-60s, and therefore I get complaints with knees, and I'm obviously struggle with that, and it's very physical, Ralph's house, but I do have 4 or 5 other channels and I'm keeping those going. There's my Jackboxx channel and there's my Mavis the tealady channel. If you want to check that out, just give a search. There's a link underneath anyway, because I work in radio for about an hour a week, which is quite nice. I've done that 36 years now. So that's the Mavis the tealady channel, YouTube channel. But anyway, this is, you could be forgiven for thinking, that's a vape, Ralph, isn't it? Well, no, it's not. It's a portable soldering iron. And look, let me show you. It goes right up to 100 watt. And that's key because you need a lot of temperature to heat the solder in old valve radios where they're wired point to point and big tags. So you need a fair bit of heat. For most modern soldering, 40 watt will suffice, but for valve radio, 100 watt. But more to the point, it's cordless. So you just charge it up and you get with it 3 tips. I have presumptively already bought some of these just ahead of time, so that in case one burns out or wears out, whatever, I've got them. But you've got the usual culprits: a pointed one, a chisel tip and a slanted tip. I don't know what you call those two, but you kind of get the picture. So you get 3 of those. They screw into this, and then you get 10 seconds of soldering time, I'm told. But that's no problem. You just click it again, you get another 10 seconds. So enough to get the heat, and I don't have to have a big cable trailing all over the place. You also get solder and a sponge pad, which I'm assuming you just wet and put on a surface. There doesn't seem to be a container for it. But that, to me, is very useful. As I say, I do have other soldering irons, but the problem with them is the cable gets in the way. Anybody who does any soldering will tell you that. So it's nice to have something where I can work in tight spaces with it and desolder stuff. So that's that. And yes, it came from China. Most stuff does now. I've got a few little gadgets to show you, odds and sods that I've bought over the last few months. So it should make for an interesting video. And as soon as the warmer weather comes, which will be, I'm guessing, end of February, beginning of March, maybe March, we'll get back into working on the downstairs, getting in all the wiring and that sort of stuff, and decorating. What was the last thing I did? Oh yeah, I think the last thing I did was hung a door in my back room. That was the last thing I did. But I'm also battling with long-term COVID, which I caught in the very latter part of 2019, before the NHS realised it was already here, and then they announced it, I think, in the March 2020. Well, I'd had it before that, and it was April before I was well. I had the cough, I had all the symptoms, didn't realise what it was, but it took me a long time to get well from that, and the long-term effects are tedious, to say the least. I get absolutely exhausted and have to have long periods of sleep, or I'll get up, I'll do a couple of hours at something, and then I'm worn out and have to go back to bed. I understand how ME sufferers feel. It's not nice, but I've just accept that that's something I have to now live with because it doesn't seem to be going. I am managing to hold down a part-time job, 16 hours a week, but even then I have to sleep really late into the morning in order to be able to do an 8-hour shift. It really does take it out of me. I'm not as well as I was. However, we will be back on the house as soon as the warmer weather comes. Got lots and lots of things to do. But that's the soldering iron, and we'll have a look at the next gadget. I've got a couple of these. They're really, really useful. Anywhere where you want music or you need to be able to play a memory card or a USB stick with MP3s on, because that's the way the world is now, isn't it? Oh, these things are only a couple of quid, honestly. Generally, if I order things from China, I'll order little things really to test them out. But these are brilliant. If you've got an old radio, for instance, and it's just unsalvageable, you can put one of these in the back, a small amp inside, and the whole thing is usable. It will play radio on that display, FM, and it'll play MP3s. It's got an earphone, but all the connections are on the back to be able to wire it up. Cheap as chips, really useful. But the next subject, which we've all had to deal with at one point or another, is batteries. Bane of my life. And you know, I've got really fed up of buying AA batteries because we use so many these days, don't we? AAs and AAAs, they're all over the house and everything, from alarms to remotes, just about everything. But anyway, I'm going to talk about AAs, AAAs and 18650s, which I use these a fair bit. These lithium-ion batteries, although they have their hazards, they do pack a lot of energy, and just over 4 volts. Is it 4.2, 4.3 volts? Lots of things run on that sort of voltage now, because it's very close to USB power, isn't it, I guess? And that's why these are common. But as I say, I got fed up of buying AAs and AAAs, so I thought I'd do something about that. Now, in an earlier video, it may have been on Ralph's house, I think it was, or on the Jackboxx channel, I talked about charging regular carbon zinc batteries, and you can charge them up to 10 times, but you need the right kind of charger, and I did talk about that in an earlier video. But what I do have, and they both run on normal phone cables, USB phone cables, little socket on one at there, that one end. This will charge 18650s and shorter batteries. So by pulling these down, you can charge those. So I always keep these in good order, and I do use them a lot. My doorbell certainly uses them. So 18650s, and if you ever need any 18650s, old laptop batteries, take them apart, you'll find loads in there. They're not all protected batteries, but they're usually with a laptop battery, it's one battery in it that fails and the rest are all good. And I've been running for years on one pack of old laptop batteries. So yeah, good way to buy it, because otherwise they're expensive to buy 18650 batteries. Anyway, so that's how I charge those. When it comes to AAs, oh, don't mess about. Charge 8. You know, it's not worth doing it any other way. So I charge my, which is a bit dusty. So that's how I charge my AAs and AAAs, and partly thanks to my sister, because she sent me an Amazon voucher for Christmas, which was very sweet of her. But any time I've ever had a gift voucher, and I don't get them very often in life, I always think, what could I buy that would be really, really useful for me long term? And so I decided AA and AAA battery charger, made by Venom. But organising them is sometimes a problem, isn't it? So at the same time, I got myself this box, which means I can store all my AA and AAA batteries. Sorry about the noise. And they're all kept in there. So anytime I need a battery now, I go to this, and then when I've got any discharged ones, I charge them up and put them back in here. So it helps me organise the whole thing. Apparently ammo boxes are good for storing batteries, but I would think they would only be good for, yeah, AA's. Going by the size of them, yeah. But you can get these battery storage boxes. And a little chat about batteries, because I've found this to be true of almost any type of battery. Occasionally, you put a rechargeable battery in one of these chargers and it won't charge. It'll just flash away, it won't do anything. And that's usually because the battery, because all these chargers are what you'd call intelligent chargers, and the same goes for the ones that charge up car batteries, the intelligent car battery chargers. They're all right up to a point, but if they discharge below a certain level, the intelligent charger won't recognise it and it won't charge it. And I've had it with car batteries that have fallen a little bit below voltage, and it applies to both. What you do, we just stand these on end. Let's imagine that the green one isn't taking a charge, but the blue one is fully charged. So what you do is you bridge that end of the battery together and that end to the battery together. I've got a little metal plate and I can stand the batteries on it and I can short them across with a screwdriver. And what that does is because there's no intelligence then, it's just a raw charge. Whatever's in that battery will transfer to that one. It'll always transfer to the weaker one. And generally speaking, that will liven that one up enough to put it in the charger and it will charge. I've always found that to be the case. Either with 1860s or your regular Aaa NiCad type batteries, they work exactly the same, and so do car batteries. They also work the same. So if you get one that won't work on an intelligent charger, you have to give it a brute force charge and just short one decent battery across. Or the other way you can do it sometimes, especially with a car battery, is to put them both in parallel and charge them on a intelligent charger then, because it will see the better battery and just continue to charge. But basically short your red to red and your black to black. But you only need to do it, certainly in the case of these and the AAs, just count to 20, 30 at most, 20 to 30 seconds. That'll be enough to give enough charge so the charger will pick it up. Hope that helps on the battery front. So that was one of the things I bought. AAs and AAAs, let's get those out of the way. And what else did I get? Oh yes, got to dig this out though. There we go. What's that? I'll tell you what it is. I got an isolation transformer. I don't want to get too technical on you. There's plenty of channels on the internet that do that. But basically it's a way of isolating an old radio set from the mains, because they tend to be live chassis. Anyway, I've got this isolation transformer, but it's got no reading on it, so you can't see what's coming out of it. This thing it'll read the amps and it'll read the volts. So at some point, I'm going to pop that into the case, cut a hole in the side for it, and then I'll actually be able to see what's coming out of or what's being consumed by the transformer. So when I plug a radio and I think, yeah, it's drawing 20 milliamps, it's drawing, I'll get an idea of whether it's working correctly or whether it's drawing any current at all. So this one will actually go round the wire, the output wire, that will read the amps, and that one will read the volts. And that's it. Very simple thing really, but if you had to make it, well, it's a different matter altogether, isn't it? So that's what that's for. And I thought I'd show you this too. I've had to move location. I've got a rather busy week. But if you'd seen one of my previous videos, you may have noticed that I bought a Aaa Soldering in bright red. Beautiful thing. Although it was only long wave and medium wave. This one's FM, or as they used to call it, VHF. Absolutely wonderful condition. I don't think I've ever seen a Aaa Soldering in as good a condition as this. Didn't have to do anything to it at all. Absolutely works perfectly. I mean, normally you have to go through and recap them and sort of zap the transistors in it, shove 20 volts through them just to get rid of all the whiskers, because they're old germanium transistors in these. But I didn't have to do a thing. It works perfectly. I'm not going to demonstrate it because I'll get a copyright strike. But believe me, that is a really nice sounding radio. And these days, these things will fetch £50 and upwards. I'd say this one's at least £60–70 because of its condition. There you go, Aaa Soldering. And now I'm back on my workbench. Not as well lit, I must admit. That last location was brilliant for lighting, wasn't it? Unfortunately, it was at work, so not something I can use too often. I just had 5 minutes, so I was able to do that. But I wanted to talk about Pp9 batteries. Not so many about now. I mean, these are beasts, aren't they? You can still get them, but it's a diminishing market now, isn't it? Because, you know, what do we have these days that needs a battery that big and heavy? Not much. Almost all modern electronics runs on 5 volt, 12 volt at worst. So, but these, with the Aaa radio, it needs 18 volts, you know, 2 of these things, which is huge. And the other aspect is the cost. You know, if you buy them online, they're going to cost you £5 each. You might be able to get them reduced somewhere if you hunt around, perhaps get them for £3 or £4 if you're lucky. But not great, is it, when at the end of the day, once the battery expires, you've got to dispose of it and buy another one. Seems nuts to me. So I was kind of looking at a solution for this because I didn't want to keep the Pp9. I've got to get this right because Pp3s are the little small 9 volts, aren't they? You know, I want to keep the look of the battery because it goes with the radio and you open it up and it's got the right batteries in it. But I don't want to be messing with these things anymore. There's got to be an answer to it. So, obviously, you've got to get it apart and put some other battery in there that is equivalent to 9 volts, that's affordable. All right, so let's talk about the case first, because here's one I prepared earlier. And I'll show you this because it will help you in dismantling the case. I used a Stanley knife very carefully. I'll just show you. You see that edge there? You've got to cut in sufficiently to break the glue that holds the lid on, because, and I'll take the lid off so you can actually see what you're cutting into. So you've got this lip all the way around, which is convenient, isn't it? Yeah, so I'll just cut on that and then just prise the lid off and disposed of the contents safely, which you should do. You don't chuck batteries in landfill, it's not good. Right, so that was the other issue, because obviously you're replacing these things as landfill constantly. It's an endless cycle, isn't it? So it's got to be a rechargeable solution. The Pp3 rechargeable. Well, I did look at that. I did think about that, but they are not cheap. You go and have a look at the price of Pp3 rechargeables. Well, you might get them very cheap, but they won't be very good. So what I've come up with is one of these. Yeah, Aaa batteries in a stack of 6. Comes out about 9 volt, doesn't it? And the good thing about using Aas is they are readily available. They're in almost everything. We're not going to run out of Aaa batteries quickly, are we? And you use them for other things in the house, so you know it's you're not losing anything, are you? Really, stick with Aas. So stick 6 of those. Solder it to these 2 terminals correctly, and stick your lid back down again. You could just put tape around it. I may look at this and see if I can fit the top on with a couple of screws. Make some mounting pieces in time to screw it to. That way, just undo the screws, take it out, swap your 6 rechargeable batteries, and put them back in again. Anyway, there's a thought for you. If you've got any equipment that uses one of these hideous Pp9 batteries. If I recall rightly, I think these were originally developed for bicycle torches. We're talking about 1950s, 60s. I think that's what they used. They used some, or they used the ones, was it they're called the lantern batteries, that have got a couple of springs, offset springs on the top. Possibly. Yeah, I think they may have been 6 volt actually. Anyway, there's a solution with a 9 volt battery. Do with that what you like. So much for Radio 3. Yeah, so these work really well because these rechargeables have got quite a bit of punch. They're easily more powerful than what was in there. Not high voltage, but probably more current available. and they'll probably last quite a long time actually. But the whole point is, AA rechargeables you can get practically anywhere. These you can't get practically anywhere. Some of the solutions I've seen, yeah, they're a little over-engineered to my liking, but I like the fact with these that the worst you've got to do, because I put black tape around them just to secure the tops, is just undo the tape, change the batteries and replace the tape. Yeah, because what I was thinking is I could make a core for these, a plastic inner that AA battery holder slots into, and also allows me with 2 screws on the top to secure the top down. And even, because you can get them, reprint the old-fashioned ever-ready labels, if you want to go that far. But I mean, how many times are people going to look in the back of your radio? Well, apart from yourself, or if you're a hacker enthusiast. Well, you're not really, are you? So I think this is the easiest, quickest, probably the cheapest way of doing it. And then you don't have to buy any more Pp9s. So there you go. Well, we're back to some proper rails house. Well, albeit low-key, and I'll tell you why it's low-key. This is, well, it's a small box room, which I use to put my computer in, any paperwork that I've got to do in here, and also repairing radios. And for that reason, this screen, and I'll spare you the messy desk, but basically it sits on a, I don't know, about a 6-foot length of kitchen worktop, and that's supported on legs, and I put a strip of wood on the back wall to screw the actual worktop onto, so it's fastened properly. Anyway, it's nice and sturdy, and I like it. Much better, I have to say, than these IKEA desk units, which aren't deep enough. Anybody that's ever used them, even your kids, if you fit them up with one of those, they'll say, this desk isn't big enough. No, it's not deep enough. But anyway, this wall, which is between the box room and the front bedroom, is, well, actually it's a stud wall, but it's lath and plaster, so it is hollow, and it was like that when the house was built. I assume that the reason they put that in, if they hadn't taken that wall back, this box room wouldn't have been worth using. You'd have just about got a pair of shoes in it. So anyway, more to the point, I want to put a shelf up above my monitor and get these speakers up there, because they're in the way, and give myself a bit more room on my desk. And I've also got a lot of stuff like this, yeah, all resistors and capacitors. They're not good in boxes like that, because when you're looking for a 1k resistor, you've got to go through the whole lot every time. It drives me mental. So I've ordered 3 multi-drawer units, the sort of things you put screws in. Anyway, shopped around on eBay, as I do, got the best price I could. I think they were about 15 quid each, which I thought was all right. So anyway, 45 quid, and they should arrive in a day or two. So I wanted to make sure that I've got my shelf brackets in and my shelf, but you can't see the studs. Now, I've tried stud finders, I've tried magnets, I've tried putting a brad hole into the wall, see if I can. It just gets messy, and you're getting nowhere really. But what I did remember is when I painted this room, when it had 2-3 layers of paint on and it's quite moist, let's say, the upright studs started to appear. You got an outline of where they were. So I thought, right, that's going to be the best way to do it. So I've used the same paint that I painted the wall with, same brand, same pot. So you're not going to notice afterwards. But it should, after an hour or so, you can just see that dark line, that's the wet part. After an hour or so, I should be able to see the uprights, and then I can mark them off with a pencil. Yeah, the things you have to do just to put a shelf in. Anyway, an extra couple of coats of paint on the wall won't hurt. I've always been really pleased the way that light switch turned out. That was a nightmare in here because there was nothing to fix to, but I made sure I'd got something to fix to. You go back through one of the early Rails House videos, I can't forget which number it was, but you'll see it. Anyway, so I'm just waiting for this paint to soak into the wall a little bit more. May put another coat on it, Sorry, you're just looking at white, aren't you? And like I say, then I'll mark them with pencil. Yeah, if you do electronics, seriously, you've got to be organised. It's like anybody who does a craft hobby, you know, you've got to know where everything is, and it's no good if everything's thrown into a drawer. It just doesn't work, and spoils your creative spirit. And in my case, it's just irritating. So yeah, so the other thing I've got is I've got a scaffold board, which I use extensively around the house. It's so handy. It's about 6 to 7 foot long, I think, something like that. And I've never got anywhere to store it, but it is useful. And I thought, well, just put your scaffold board across there and whatever you want to put on it. And then when you want the scaffold board, just take the stuff off and take the scaffold board away. I suppose I better show you this. See that? Right up, going up to the ceiling. That runs the length of the wall there. And you can slot those brackets into it. You see it? So that's what I'm going to use. Now these are absolutely the best shelving brackets you'll ever get. I wouldn't say they're the prettiest to look at, but what they are is incredibly strong. And I've got a lot of weight on these shelves, but it does the job. So that's what I'm going to use, but I can't fasten them to the wall unless I can find the uprights in that stud wall. So that's what I'm doing today. So if you ever have a stud wall and you can't find where the studs are, try painting it. After about an hour it'll be pretty obvious where they are. Well, I don't know if you can see this, but this is about an hour and a half actually, and 2 to 3 coats later, but you see the laths are starting to show through, so I know there's an upright there because it's a whitish area. It doesn't soak it up so much there. So give it a bit longer and I'll be able to mark all these out, and then I've got something to screw to. There we go, it's in. So yeah, painting the wall did the trick. And also 3 of these arrived today. I'd ordered a mail order. I think I mentioned they're about 15 quid each, but I went into Aldi last night and they were doing it for £8.99. If only I'd known. Never mind. But anyway, I'm getting all my resistors put in there now, and it'll take me a while to get them all sorted. But all these little miscellaneous things, like, you know, these, you know, small cable clips for small cables, raw plugs, you know, chop blocks, all different kinds, small screwdrivers. Yeah, it's always been a bit of a problem for me organising this sort of stuff, and I think this, to be honest, is the answer. So the scaffold board's all in. I shall start to get my desk back soon. I've just got to finish off tidying off the rest of the wiring and get my studio stuff put back in again. But now I've also got somewhere to hang my mic from, which I didn't have before. Actually, I tend to use, this is when I'm doing my radio stuff, I tend to use this, which, let's have a look at the make of it. Oh yeah, TOA. I found that. Very true. At the back of a bingo hall, I was out with a mate. We were doing some stuff on a lorry, and there were a couple of them laying on the floor. And I thought, well, I don't know if they're any good or not. I presume they were for bingo calling. Anyway, nobody seemed to want them. They're amongst all the rubbish. And it turns out they're 50 quid each, those things. And that mic, despite its size, beats that. Unbelievable, isn't it? Anyway, yeah, so I've got somewhere to mount that now. But I've had to temporarily screw this bit of wood up at the front. It's not the tidiest, and the reason being is because if I look under there, I've screwed an LED strip light, quite a nice one, underneath. I could add another one if I wanted to, but I think one's sufficient. But anyway, that's really to shield my eyes more than anything. But it's occurred to me, this makes a great face to put all my screwdrivers and bits and pieces, so I can actually go out and grab them, which again is another problem because I'm either putting them in jars or pots or boxes. Not exactly ideal. So yeah, that's a good result. So I think that's enough from Ralph's house for this week. By the looks of it, I've got a busy day ahead of me. But it'd be nice to have it all organised and just before I go, I'm just going to show you something, because at some point over the next couple of weeks I'm going to tackle this, and it belongs to my good friend Marcus. It's a Murphy A212, and he rescued it out of a skip. And I think he was quite keen to turn it on, but I said, no, don't do that, because I'll show you the back and I'll show you why. Yeah, this is the reverse. It's a valve set, if you hadn't already guessed. And one of the reasons why you've got to be very careful with these, apart from the voltages that are involved, is if you don't replace a lot of the capacitors in it, not so much these tend to be alright, but underneath, for sure, when I turn this over, there's going to be a lot of wax and paper capacitors, and if they're on the last legs, what can happen is you can blow your output transformer. That's what supplies the speaker, and possibly your output valve, which is one of the most expensive in the entire set, to be honest. So I'm not going to take risks like that. So I'm going to give this a light dust and clean, and then hopefully next week we'll unscrew that, have a look, and start going through and replacing all the capacitors in this, and then we'll fire it up for the first time. May even get a chance to align it. That would be quite nice. So that's it from Ralph's house. Hope you've enjoyed it, and see you in the next one. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.